You did it. You have made it to the final chapter of the semester. We're here in chapter 14. And this chapter is kind of a combination chapter. Some of this is not in the textbook. So make sure you take good notes when you look at this lecture. But within this chapter, we're going to talk about crimes of the new millennium, particularly cybercrime. And I like to bring in scams too. And it's important to talk about scams because, many of us have experienced being victimized at the hands of scammers, and it's important to be aware of what scams exist in our society. So we're going to have a little bit of an avenue where we can talk about these things, and you can be on the lookout for what some of these types of scams are, and they are cybercrimes, absolutely. So what's a cybercrime? Well, cybercrime involves the theft and or destruction of information, resources, or funds via computers, computer networks, or the internet. Now, cybercrime is typically broken into three categories. First of all, we have a cyber theft, and that's typically when someone will use computer networks for criminal profits. They may illegally copy material that's safeguarded under copyright protection. For example, if you're a movie buff and you like to go to the movies, and there's a lot of great movies that have been coming out, movies like Sinners have achieved widespread acclaim. I'm a superhero buff, so I saw Thunderbolts, Superman's coming out. I'm looking forward to that. Fantastic Four First Steps. But no matter where you are and what type of movie you like or genre, if you are to copy those movies, whether you're recording those movies from your phone or some other fancy device, and then you are, downloaded that movie, essentially you're committing copyright protection, because those theaters, those studios, those producers and directors and all the people that worked hard for that movie, that's money that they're losing, right or wrong, but it's money that they're losing. So that's the cyber theft. Cyber vandalism is technological destruction, usually involves malicious attacks. It's aimed at destroying, disrupting, or defacing online resources they find offensive. And then, of course, there's cyber war and cyber terrorism, acts aimed at undermining the social, economic, and political system of an enemy nation. And that can range from stealing secrets from foreign powers to destroying an enemy's web-based infrastructure. So we're going to talk about these three types of cybercrime, but sprinkled in between cyber theft and cyber vandalism, we will talk about scams. So the internet is a great tool, right? The internet's a great tool for research. It's great for you as a student when you have to write research papers, you want to learn more. I love the internet as a professor because I can find additional facts beyond the textbook, which I know you're probably excited that you're like, yay, I don't need this book anymore. Hang on to this book. It's a lot of good information. Now, I have the 8th edition. I also have the 7th edition because I love using Siegel's Criminology to Court, and this is not a plug for him, but his book is really, really, really good. Plus, a person that I look up to in the academic world has written in here as well. 2 people, actually. But with that being said, anytime I want to get information beyond this textbook, I may go to the internet, and that also enhances my lectures. With that being said, cyber criminals tend to use the internet too. It's a great tool for them as well. And more often than not, they use the internet to meet victims or to look for people or to meet co-offenders too, like forums, and they may go on, other sites to meet up with people or to try to find victims. With that being said, it's important to beware of the dark web, right? The dark web tends to be a key haven and a key meetup spot for a lot of malicious activity. So how do you get to the dark web, right? Well, you go on something called Tor. Tor stands for the Onion Router. And Tor is the commonly used dark web browser, which is a free open source network to provide anonymity for users, internet traffic, and provide access to .onion websites. Now, I had a former colleague that brought me on, and she and we had an amazing discussion. We really did. It's kind of unfortunate she's moved on to another university, but she talked about how her and another colleague were kind of like the leaders in doing cyber research, Tor, cybertheft. I mean, some of their research was groundbreaking, and so seeing them walk up the door was a huge blow to the department. But I mean, that's just unfortunate in academia. With that being said, she explained to me a little bit more about Tor and how, you know, the onion router is used because it provides a level of anonymity, the veil of anonymity that you wouldn't get from going on Google or Yahoo or or Bing or some other search engine. So even though websites normally end in .com, you know, yahoo.com, espn.com, you know, google.com, you know, or you have .net or even have .edu, generally speaking, websites on the dark web through Tor end in .onion. So if you go in and type a website in right now, right, if you're listening to the lecture, say, oh, I'm curious, let me stop Professor Dale's lecture and let me go ahead and type in blah, 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 .onion. Again, I don't even know. What you have to understand is you're not going to get anywhere because you're not accessing it through Tor. You have to utilize the onion router to get to .onion websites. And by the way, Tor is free. Tor is free. And that's why I asked this question. Would you be interested in peeling back the layers and surfing on Tor? Is it illegal? The answer is it is absolutely not illegal. It is a free router. You can freely download it on your computer. You can freely surf the dark web. Journalists use it. Law enforcement officials use it. As I said before, some of my colleagues, former colleagues now, in the criminal justice department use it to gather data and collaborate with law enforcement. But here's my take, right? If you're going to get on the onion router, if you're going to go ahead and go on Tor, you better know what you're doing, right? I've never been on it, so I can't sit here and say, well, I've gone on Tor, and yeah, I'm just peruse the dark web a little bit just to see. I don't have any interest in doing it personally. I'm not curious about it. I leave that to the professionals. I leave that to law enforcement officials. But if you choose to get on there, know what you're doing and be careful, because a lot of times people's information can get compromised. You don't want some hacker or someone to somehow get into your system or your network, and now they're potentially trying to steal your information. You just need to be careful and be mindful of what you're looking at. And, you know, if you are browsing on Tor, what that is going to mean if you are not careful, okay? But it's not illegal, and it is free. You can surf the dark web. You just need to know what you're doing, okay? So cybercrime includes individuals and corporations. Of course, the tactics vary. Sometimes individuals will try to distribute illegal or dangerous services or materials, distribute obscenity. Remember, we talked about paraphilias in the last chapter. Child pornography. It's difficult to control, and offenders may be all over the world, so you might get jurisdictional issues that may come into play. Again, remember the dark web. Individuals who surf the dark web or on the dark web, they're not necessarily right around the corner or on the other side of the state you live in. They might be on the other side of the country. More often than not, they're somewhere else in the world, right? So it's very difficult to track these individuals down. That's why it's a headache for law enforcement. Dangerous drugs can be distributed online, and the reason why this falls under the cyber theft category is because you might think you're purchasing, as you see in the image, this prescription drug, whatever this drug is, with the M and the 30. However, the real ones are on the right-hand side, but the ones that are fake are on the left-hand side. So you said, oh, well, times are hard. Economically, I'm dealing with challenges. I can't afford to buy prescription drugs that cost $200, $300, $400, but I can afford to buy prescription drugs that cost $70 or $80. And you take the chance of thinking you're buying the stuff on the right that's real, and you bought the stuff on the left that's fake, and that stuff can kill you, right? So you have to be very careful, but people purchase prescription drugs online. It's also important and common to purchase illegal drugs, right? The targeted audience for illegal drugs are youth, young people. You know, those are the ones who are easily influenced to purchase the targeted audience to purchase illegal drugs. And then you also have to worry about thefts from ATMs and gas stations. Skimming devices are real. Beware. You know, summer season, fall, football season, a lot of travel. You have to be careful. My rule of thumb is if you're traveling, use a credit card to get your gas. If you don't want to use a credit card, pay inside or use cash, because skimming devices, especially if you're traveling, are very, very real. So what are some of the scams out there? This is not found in your textbook, so this is a Professor Fields special. But what are some of the scams that are out there? Well, scam artists are going to utilize and try to employ a bunch of techniques to get your personal identification or to try to steal your information. Some of the methods they use include, for one, dumpster diving, going through your trash. Look, you don't have to be fun or proper in, well, you know, I'm just going to throw away this trash and, you know, I'm not going to shred up my bank statement, or I'm going to rip up this credit card or debit card or whatever. No. Don't think that a criminal is not too cute or too high and mighty to go through trash. Now, you might be like, Pressfields, that's gross. What if you have diapers in there? What if you have other sanitary waste and all that? They don't care. They're looking for something. They're looking for any information that could potentially enrich them. So if that includes going through your trash, then so be it. Think about shoulder surfing. How often do you go to the ATM? Are you one of my students that you never go to the ATM? Or are you one of the students that I've had in the past? They're like, oh yeah, Professor Fields, I go to the ATM at night. I don't think anything of it. And I'm like, why would you do that? Right? Same thing. You don't have to be cute. If you're punching in your PIN at the ATM and somebody's in your space, tell them to back up. Be a little bit more forceful. Ladies, that goes for you too. You don't have to be cute when it comes to a criminal, right? Because as I used to say with people in victimology, you're the only person responsible for preventing your own victimization, and you don't want to become just another victim. So please be careful when you're at the ATM. Be careful when you're punching your PIN. Don't be just like, okay, 2781, don't be like that, Make sure they're not looking at you typing those in. And if they're in your space, you don't have to have a problem telling them to back up. Of course, stealing a wallet or breaking into the victim's home or car, be careful leaving your wallet in your car. Be careful leaving valuables, not putting valuables away, because sometimes criminals will break in and they'll steal those items, and now you're like, well, where's this at? Where's my wallet? Where's my this? Where's that? And that's how they get your information. So be very, very careful. And I put this in. I took this was 2021, so we're still in COVID. We've been dealing with COVID for about a year at this time. Remember, the world shut down around March 17th or so. So we're about a year into COVID. I go to the ATM. Now, right in front of me, there's a car. And I kid you not. My story is, I kid you not. I'm behind the car. I'm going to the ATM to withdraw some money. The car in front of me, made sure they did their transaction, and they wanted to make sure that they saw me pull up and they didn't grab their receipt. So I do think it was a little bit of I want you to see what I have. And so what did I do? I grabbed the ATM receipt and I was like, are you kidding me? And I took a picture of it and I said, I'm going to include this as a talking point, because that person who wanted to see me grab the receipt and they took off, and they clearly wanted me to know that they had $98,000 in their checking account, almost $100,000 in their checking account. If I'm a bad guy, if I'm a criminal, I'm like, oh, snap. They got a lot of money in their account. Let me follow them so I can try to rob them or burglarize their home. But chances are I'm going to rob them to get their ATM card. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start trying to get as much stuff as I can before they cancel the card. Right? So be careful when you leave those receipts too in your the ATM machine, because while you might think I'm cute making a statement, and oh, by the way, that person only took $60 out of their checking account, but they wanted you to see they had $98,000 in the account. That's dangerous, right? That's dangerous. They only took $60 out, but left $98,000 in there. They wanted you to know how much they have in their account. But that's very dangerous, because you don't know what criminal is behind you and possibly going to follow you to rob you, or worse, to try to get some of that money. It's dangerous, but that's why I kept that. And no, that's not my ATM receipt. So don't think Professor Fields is rolling in the money. I'm not. So scammers don't just exist through the above mentioned methods. They utilize 4 other tactics to target victims, so beware. The methods include spammers, phishers, vishing, and farming. And we're going to go through these in just a moment, but these are some of the tactics that scammers use. So let's talk about the first one, spammers, right? Or spam. We know with spam, you get junk email. It fills up your individual email accounts. It can be used to commit online fraud. Spam is not only sent via email, but it could be sent via text messages as well. And spammers generally send unsolicited emails with the intent to defraud victims. For example, they want to offer up deals on products or services. So what is noteworthy is that over the past couple of years, spams are even more dangerous because they contain links to malicious software, and the malicious software can install what's called spyware onto your computer. Now, when looking at spam, these are 2 emails, 2 examples I just pulled from online, and it's very obvious. If you look a little closely, you can spot some of the inconsistencies. For example, when we look at the Microsoft Office 365 email, again, looks like it came from the Office 365 team, One Microsoft Way. It looks very legit, right? But the problem is when you look at where it says Microsoft, it says Microsoft at email-records.com. It's not going to say Microsoft at email-records.com. It's going to say at Microsoft.com, So there's that. Same thing over here on the right. We received an alert last night informing IT of some strange long-on behavior on your account. Access the ticket containing the list below. You think, oh, it's IT desk. Okay, this is legit. You click on it. It's a spam. They got you, right? So you have to be very careful what some of these tactics are, and most of these emails go right into your spam mailbox. Phishers, they pose as legitimate companies in government agencies, or they use misleading or disguised hyperlinks, a little bit like spam. But the thing with phishers is that they're really working hard to get you to reveal personal identification. Whereas with the spam, you click on the link and now spyware is getting installed onto your computer, or they're hijacking your system. Phishers are just trying to get the information, right? So, well, once again, they might send you an information or send you an email requesting information to verify what your personal account is, something along those lines. They can target senior citizens. They do scams, and they try to phish concerning Social Security benefits. Same thing when it comes from the IRS. Back in 2020, during the pandemic, there was a thing called stimulus checks. Again, you guys would have been in probably middle school, maybe early high school, so you wouldn't have necessarily remembered it, but your parents would have gotten these. And these stimulus checks were sent out to stimulate the economy because our economy was technically in free fall with the pandemic. So some people were getting all sorts of IRS scams because they were like, well, where's my stimulus check for $500 or my stimulus check for $1,000 or whatever. And if you had a lot of kids, you might even got $2,000 or $3,000 depending on how many kids you had. But the issue here is that they were scams, and criminals were preying on the fact that people were not only dealing with the pandemic, but also in need of money and funds. So they were getting people's information, and unsuspecting victims were thinking they were giving out correct information so they could get their stimulus checks quickly. And it turns out it was a scam. The IRS will never email anybody, right? So a couple of things. One, this is a fake one that I had found. From Xfinity. Xfinity is a member of Comcast, but Xfinity, we regret to inform you your account is temporarily suspended. We identify several errors in the charges of the bill. You can update your payment. You click on that, they got your information. How do we know? Because look, it says Xfinity.com, www.upenn.edu. What in the world? That's not Xfinity.com. but they're counting on you not paying attention and being like, wow, this looks like Xfinity. Oh my goodness, I must be having some problems with my bill. And then you click on it, and there they got you. The left right here, something about ABC News. Again, looks very real, but it's abcnews.com.co. That's not real. ABC News is going to be abcnews.com. So you click on that. It looks real, but it's not. Maybe even they say, click here for, because sometimes when you want to read the news or read a news article, you have to go ahead and, you have to pay for the subscription. So it might say, to continue reading this news article, please click here, and it's $5. Well, you might be like, that's not a big deal. I'll pay the $5. I want to read the article. And then they got your debit card information, your credit card information, and now they're charging you $50 or $100. Okay, so that's what phishers do. Vishing is voice phishing. This is a type of fraud that occurs via voice messages sent to cell phones. So, for example, you might get someone that may call you and they say, hey, I'm a representative of Wells Fargo, Citi, Truist, SunTrust, you name any bank, Bank of America, any bank that's out there, you name a bank or a credit union, and they say that, hey, your bank account has been compromised, and then they may say, okay, you need to go ahead and verify your information. So what's your social security number? You tell them, okay, they got your social. And what's your address? And you tell them. Now they got your address and they have your social security number. Now you're in a bad spot because you've just given them some critical information about yourself that it's going to be very difficult to overcome because they got your social security number and they have your address. And the worst thing you can do is they say, okay, now we need you to verify your account one more time. Could you please read it to me? Well, if you go, wait a minute, you're the bank representative. You should be able to see my account. I know, sir, I know, ma'am, but our protocol is we need you to read the account back to us. And if you go ahead and read your full bank account, they got your social security number, your home address, and your full account. You are done, right? That's vishing, right? It comes from voice phishing. It comes from voice messages. It comes from talking over the phone. So it's very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. And like I said, once you call the number, sometimes they give you the instructions on leaving your account. If they don't talk to you, don't talk to them live, and that's it. Your account is empty. It's compromised. And then last thing, we got farming. Farming is a type of scam in which the offender creates a website that looks identical to the authentic website. Farming typically uses what's called a Trojan horse program, and it's going to redirect people to counterfeit banking or e-commerce sites, and then it's going to install spyware to convince the person to upload their credit card information because the site is considered safe. Typically, farming is found in a lot of pornographic websites, so unless you're looking at porn, you don't have to worry about farming, but there are still circumstances and situations where you might find farming on eBay or some other sites where you can purchase secondhand goods. I know eBay was big. I saw a video several years ago where an individual was looking to buy a MacBook, and he was like, look, you got to be really careful. And he breaks it down. He said, if you hover over the hyperlink, you will see that the hyperlink is fake. But when you click on it, it will take you to the site that looks exactly like eBay, but it's not eBay. And he was like, I'm telling you, you got to be careful. And I was like, whew, and he was like, this is how they probably scammed thousands and thousands of dollars out of people, making them think that this is a real eBay site for a MacBook, when in reality, it's not. So farming is one of those types of scams that exist as well. So we talked about cyber theft. Let's talk about cyber vandalism. Cyber vandalism involves a cyber attack motivated by revenge and destruction to achieve malicious intent. It's designed to hurt, embarrass someone they're angry at, or simply hurt people because they enjoy being destructive. Cyber vandals, compared to cyber criminals who want to engage in cyber theft, cyber vandals, they're not out for profit. They're not out to, make a buck or make a living. They're out to just simply destroy and wreak havoc and inflict harm on others. And typically with cyber vandalism, they're either going to send destructive viruses or worms, or they're going to stalk or bully people online. Again, they're not doing it for money. You can even say, I'll pay you to stop it. They don't care. They just want to troll and make people's lives miserable, right? There's a show out there called Black Mirror, and I don't know if any of you have ever seen it, but I want to say this is probably around season 3, maybe. There's an individual, there's an episode where there's this online cyber troll, and you have to do all these tasks, or he or she or whomever's controlling this is going to release very harmful information to the person, right? Or harmful information on the person. With that being said, when looking at cyber vandalism, it's not done for money. Even though you're doing all these tasks, like in the show Black Mirror, could care less. They want to damage and destroy the reputation of the victim. So one of the most notable instances of cyber vandalism was Ashley Madison. And Ashley Madison was a very controversial, it's still around to my knowledge, but Ashley Madison is a very controversial website because their mantra is what you see there. Life is short, have an affair. And you can tell what your relationship status is, and then you can find people who don't care what your status is. They want to meet you, right? Well, the thing about Ashley Madison and why I'm including this under cyber vandalism is because there was a massive Ashley Madison leak several years ago. And I remember the articles came out like, do you want to check to see if your spouse or your boyfriend or your significant other is on Ashley Madison? Type their name in and we can tell you if they've been on that website. And you had a lot of people who were very nervous because they didn't know if they were going to find their spouse on there. Well, there was also some celebrities on there too. I know there was like a couple of famous people from ESPN, but yeah, it was a massive, massive leak. And this is one of the topics that I like to talk about in class because I always ask, should we go after the people who leaked the information about who was on Ashley Madison? Should we really focus on filing lawsuits and going after them? Or should we be like, thank you for doing that, for exposing cheaters and philanderers and adulterers, depending on, how you feel. And it's always usually a good conversation. A lot of people in class are like, yeah, if my boyfriend was on there or my husband was on there, good, I'm glad you got caught. Others are like, no, they're wrong to be on there, but these people are also wrong for leaking it because it is a private website. And you see right down there, it says SSL secure site. It's supposed to be 100% discreet, and yet they were hacked and millions of accounts were leaked. So it's a great conversation, but you got to be aware that sometimes when you sign up for certain sites, your information can be compromised. Website defacement is another type of cyber vandalism. The hacker will access the victim's website. They'll typically enter misleading or damaging information. Almost all are designed to vandalize web pages, whether they bring profit or gain. Typically, this was one that happened in 2020. So right before, essentially, right before, a year before the, or several months before the 2020 election. The Federal Depository Library Program's website was defaced, showed this image of President Trump being punched in the side of the face, and it was from Iran. So, it took them some time to get it down, but these individuals from Iran went ahead and, defaced this Federal Depository Library website showing the president getting punched in the face. So that's an example of website defacement. Again, they want to do something that's damaging or misleading. So the last one is cyber war, particularly cyber terrorism. And cyber war enables the forces of one's nation state to penetrate another nation's computers or networks for the purposes of causing damage or disruption. Now, I want to believe that our computers are so sophisticated, especially the Pentagon and some of the specialists that work at the Department of Defense and the Pentagon. Those people, they're probably hackers and cyber experts, maybe people with the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, that can absolutely go into our enemies' computers and completely cripple them. Whether that's crippling gas pumps, whether that's stopping their banks, whatever. But what happens if it were to happen to us, right? cyber war, anytime we deal with cyber war, because we're talking about computers, it creates two rational responses, especially if we're looking at missile targeting systems or defense systems or attack systems. Fear and panic. Because generally speaking, if our missile systems were to be disrupted, thank goodness they can't be, but if they were, and there's lots of movies out there and TV shows. I have one that I play in class from American Horror Story, Apocalypse. There's movies from the 80s where stuff like this happened. But if our missile systems were ever to be compromised, then the belief would be all of a sudden our missiles would turn on ourselves. Or if we started launching missiles at our allies and they started launching missiles at us, we would go into a apocalypse, so to speak, into the end of the world. So what will happen is that would create fear and panic. So cyber war also includes cyber espionage, efforts by intelligent agencies to infiltrate or penetrate the computer networks of an enemy nation to steal important data, vice versa. Cyber terrorism is an element of cyber war. It involves an effort by covert forces to disrupt the intersection where the virtual electronic reality of computers meets the real physical world. Essentially, cyber terrorists, they operate with no borders. Cyber terrorists can attack from anywhere, and they can, they exist in countries where cyber laws barely exist. In other words, cyber terrorists can be in Iran, they can be in Iraq, they can be in Pakistan, and they can be trying to infiltrate computer systems here in America or in Canada or in England or wherever. So they're still trying to instill fear. They're just doing so via computers. So our cybercrime summary, we talked about cyber theft. What is it? Using cyberspace to distribute illegal goods, services, to fraud people, get a quick profit. Cyber vandalism, it's only for revenge. You don't care about money. You're just trying to diminish or hurt somebody. And in cyber war, an enemy is trying to disrupt the way of life for people on computers, online, and usually where that electronic reality of computers meets the physical world. That is cyber war. So you made it. You made it to the very end. This is the last lecture. So in this final chapter, we talked about cybercrime. We looked at the dark web Tor. Remember, it is not illegal to surf the dark web. You can access it if you choose to. Just be careful and don't say Professor Fields told me to access it, so I'm doing it. Do it on your own free will. We did talk about some of the different types of scams and scam artists, what they do, how they operate, as well as spam, phishing, vishing, and farming. And then lastly, we talked about cyber theft, cyber vandalism, and cyber war. So I want to say congrats. You made it to the end of the semester. Pat yourself on the back for learning about criminal theories and hanging in there. Again, I know it can be very tough looking at theories and talking about theories for 6-7 chapters, but you did it. And if there's one takeaway that I want you to walk away from this course on is one, I hope I broke it down in a way that made it easy to understand. But two, rational choice theory is your baseline theory. No matter where you go in life, no matter what you do, no matter what other classes you take, or if you graduated, or wherever you are, you will always weigh the pros and the cons, the benefits to the risks, the rewards to the cost of anything you do in life. You'll always do that. Rational choice theory will follow you for the rest of your life. So I want to thank you for tuning in. Again, if you've liked this course, if you like what I've talked about, like, subscribe, share, and from there, maybe I'll see you down the road. Take care and have a good one.